We're Susan and Mel Finlay, National Directors of Nation at Prayer. This month, as we're talking with leaders across Canada, we are focusing on the importance and impact of prayer in the life of our nation.
Today, we're talking with Dr. Rod Wilson. Rod is an author, clinical psychologist, sought-after international speaker, and president of Regent College, an innovative graduate school of theology. He joins us now by phone from Vancouver, BC. Welcome, Rod.
Thanks so much, Mel and Susan. It's great to be with you.
Great to have you here.
We're delighted to have you, and the first question is kind of a double-barreled one. You engage with Christians internationally as well as locally. What are some of your observations on the practice of prayer among Christians today, and what do you think Christians need to be focused on when they think of prayer?
Well, this may seem like a strange thing to say right at the beginning, but I think one of the biggest problems with prayer internationally right now is we don't really understand what it's about at the core. I think often when I hear Christians talk about prayer, there's lots of discussion of the length of prayer and the style of prayer and the intensity or the words. And really, I think we've often forgotten in all our discussion in prayer that prayer is essentially about communication with God and His power. And the nature and style of prayer is not the biggest focus. In fact, it was interesting. I heard just recently from somebody that was getting up at 4:30 to pray in the morning because they thought it reflected a greater commitment to prayer if they got up earlier in the morning to pray. And I think that becomes a difficulty when we focus more on the method and the approach rather than really focusing on God and this communion and communication with God and being in relationship with Him. Rather than the methods and the styles we use.
And what do you think should be the focus for people? Some of the things that they might help them with their prayer life.
Well, I think if the focus is in essence on the character of God, I mean, a lot of this medium of prayer is about who we're talking to, who we're in communion with, and I think it's not so much what we're doing as much as who we're praying to. And I think if we focused on His character and the essence of who He is and our relationship with Him, and maybe focus a little less on what we're doing or not doing or how we're doing it, I think we'd be a lot better off. I find myself, for instance, as I get older, just often praying, God have mercy, which is just a very simple three-word prayer, but I think it, in essence, communicates a lot about the character of God and who He is, rather than just what I'm doing or how well I'm saying what I'm saying in prayer.
Rod, how do you, as a leader, integrate prayer into your own life?
Well, a couple of things, Susan, that for me have become important over the years. One of them is from 1 Thessalonians 5:17, one of the shortest verses in the Bible, pray continually. And, of course, when you frame prayer as something that you start with Our Father and end with Amen and have your eyes closed, it's pretty hard to pray continually when you're involved in lots of other things. But I have found myself learning more and more that prayer, in many respects, is attitudinal, and so I need to bring the continual prayer posture to all that I'm doing, whether my eyes are closed or open, or whether it starts with Our Father or ends with Amen. Just that recognition that all of what I do needs to be about continual prayer. And then I think the other thing that I found helpful in recent years, I have a discipline in the morning where I take out my calendar and pray very specifically through every meeting, every personal connection, everything that I know is planned for the day, and have found framing my day with the calendar in prayer has been extremely helpful. I go into some meetings, I'm sure as many of your listeners do, where you're a little nervous or a little bit anxious or you're not quite sure what's going to happen. And I think before leaving the house and actually committing by name and by specific topic each of the meetings I have during the day, that's been integrating that into my own life has been extremely helpful for me in terms of setting the right tone and posture as I begin the day.
Oh, that'll be helpful for our viewers. Can you briefly talk about how you integrate prayer into the life of the school at Regent College?
Well, one of the things that we did in the last few years, which has been very helpful for us, is we realized that as an academic institution and just as a busy place where there's lots on, it's very easy to get caught up in all the good things you're doing and forget prayer. And we decided to have somebody walk around the building at 12 noon every day, and they ring a bell. And so at 12 o'clock every day, I hear a bell ring, and that's really a summons to our faculty and staff and students that there's going to be a 15-minute prayer time right smack in the middle of the day in our chapel. And I find myself, sometimes I'm in meetings that I can't get out of, or I'm in a bit of a crisis and I can't leave, but just the presence of that bell has become a reminder for me, and I think for many of us, that a pause in the middle of the day for prayer is an acknowledgement of who God is. We find a lot of our Muslim friends, of course, as part of their own discipline.
That's right. That's such an important reminder. And a number of our viewers are parents of young people in universities. We'll encourage them to pray not only for their children, but for the staff and faculty and president of the universities as well. Thank you so much, Rod.